My name is Armand Coleman, and I'm the Executive Director of the Transformational Prison Project. I grew up in Queens, New York, and my life at that time was one of housing instability, where I was ping-pong between 12 different housing assignments before the age of 13, with 6 stints at my alcoholic grandparents' home. My grandparents' home was a 3.5 bedroom house, which we shared with 13 different people. I shared a room with 4 of my uncles, and my room was where they stashed their drugs and stashed their guns. But I wanted to be like my uncles. Having no other role models or no other persons to be like, I actually eventually followed them into the street life. One thing my family always stressed was the importance of not snitching. You don't tell on a family member, or anyone for that matter. I learned that lesson the hard way at the age of 5 when I made the mistake snitching on my uncle to my grandfather. When my uncle found out, he hit me in the back of the head with a brick. This landed me in the hospital. What was really painful about the situation was not that I was hit in the head with the back of a brick, but when my mother found out and she asked me what happened, I explained to her her brother had hit me in the back of the head with a brick, and I remember her response being, "That's why you don't tattle." So I learned at an early age that you don't tell, and that it was okay to hit somebody in the back of the head if they did tell. Fast forward 12 years later, I would hit somebody in the back of the head with a bullet with fatal results. I was 17 and he was 18. I was sentenced to life, and I would spend the next 28 years in prison, 2 decades in maximum security prison, a decade plus in solitary confinement. Just take that in. I was 17 years old. When I entered prison, I was the youngest person in the prison. When I left maximum security prison, I was one of the oldest persons in the prison. In 2013, 20 plus years into my incarceration, I was transferred to MCI Norfolk. I spent the last 8 years of my sentence at MCI Norfolk. This is where I was introduced to something called restorative justice and the restorative justice group. There were men that I knew, loved, and respected that were part of this group, and I saw how it was changing their lives. And I knew that my life was in need of changing. It was through these healing circles that the restorative justice group was putting on that I learned that my life was a roadmap of traumas. One thing I also learned is that the system was broken and in desperate need of transformation. While the criminal justice system focuses on the accused and the state, restorative justice is centered on the harm and the person responsible for causing the harm. Restorative justice looks at the bigger picture and has at its heart healing, communication, and community and restoration. It addresses issues that lead to healing, true healing. It was through restorative justice at MCI Norfolk that I met 3 other men who work with me presently. Brilliant men with similar but different histories of my own. Bobby, Eric, and Noble. And together we hosted a restorative justice programming, delivering restorative justice services to the prison's younger demographic. It was at MCI Norfolk that we prototyped our model at the Transformational Prison Project. And we saw that we wanted to bring this model beyond the walls into society. For 7 years, we collectively led this programming of young men, prototyping our model. We walked and talked with the young men and took feedback and adjusted our program accordingly. We knew that what we were doing behind the wall had real-world application. And we knew that when we were out of prison, we would share this model to a world that was hurting. And there was a lot of work to be done. While the U.S. has only 5% of the world's population, we had 25% of the world's incarcerated. Right now, there are 1.2 million people incarcerated in the United States. 1,200 are incarcerated here in Massachusetts. Of the 650,000 Americans returning from prison to their communities each year, 2,500 return to society each year here in Massachusetts. While the Transformational Prison Project was founded in 2013, it was a volunteer-led program on the outside and a prisoner-led program on the inside. Noble, Eric, Bobby, and I were all benefactors of restorative justice programming while incarcerated, and this programming led to our freedom in varying ways. And in January of 2021, we were all hired as the first formerly incarcerated directors of the Transformational Prison Project. But we were hired at the height of the pandemic, and we were not allowed to go into prisons. So instead of giving up, we grew up, and we had to pivot, and we expanded our work. This is our motto. While at the heart of TPP works are prisoners and survivors of harm. With the pandemic, we expanded our work to include classrooms, courtrooms, and boardrooms, introducing the tools of restorative justice dialogue and restorative justice as a team-building leadership model. We do this by connecting to individual trauma in all the ways that it shows up, acknowledging the wrongs that individuals have committed and owning it, making amends with those who have been victimized, and making meaning of the problems, and also building human connection to help individuals continue to process and heal and thrive. This leads to a life and a world of empathy, accountability, compassion, and most importantly, healing. We do this in 3 ways. The core of our work is in the Massachusetts prisons, holding restorative justice healing circles, not only with those responsible for harm, but also with individuals who have been impacted by harm, law enforcement, and the community. Secondly, with community circles, working in partnership with the law schools from Harvard to Northeastern and Columbia, we are impacting the future stewards of the legal system and corporations like Redfin, team-building programs to help their companies lead with purpose and empathy. And thirdly, we are building the pipeline through education and support, training formerly incarcerated people who were part of the restorative justice process on the inside to become restorative circle leaders on the outside. And restorative justice works. Restorative justice accounts for a decrease in the victim's desire for violent revenge against their offenders, the offender's desire for committing future harm and crimes, and the cost of the criminal justice and recidivism rates. We are working with Harvard's Chan School of Public Health to design and implement a restorative-centered evaluation and measurement on the roles of intergenerational trauma, social and economic factors, and mental health issues as it relates to the pathways of incarceration. But for every person we work with, there are 5 others that need our help. Over the next 2 years, we need to triple the number of individuals we serve, expand our works to be in all 12 prisons across the state, deepen and expand our work with our higher education partners and corporate clients, and open the first East Coast-based restorative justice reentry house. To do all this, we need to increase our full-time staff of 5 to 13 to give us the infrastructure and outreach we need. Investing in people takes money. We are looking for $4.3 million to invest in the highly important work of doing restorative justice for all. I went to prison because I was hurt. Through restorative justice, I turned that hurt into healing. And the ripples of restorative justice are infinite. There is no algorithm for the number of people restorative justice and TPP can help. So please, partner with us to scale our impact, work with us to build our infrastructure. As Bobby, Eric, Noble, and I say, hurt people, but also heal people, heal people.